Hey, fellow tennis nerds. I hope all is well. Today I'm here with Cameron Price, aspiring professional player, YouTuber nowadays, also tennis coach, documenting his journey to go on the pro tour. But he's also coaching and he has created a Notion template for tennis players, which I thought was very interesting. I checked it out. It looked really cool. So there will be a link in the description. But first of all, how are you today, Cameron?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
So how did you come up with this idea of like starting to document your journey? Was this also always something you wanted to do, or is it something that kind of came as a like, coincidence?
So I was interested in YouTube throughout my whole life, really, but when I was a bit younger, I think I was a bit probably a bit awkward and anxious to do like YouTube. But as I got older, I feel like I've matured a little bit and it's a bit more comfortable with like recording yourself on the camera. But to be honest, I got mainly just inspired by the other tennis YouTubers that I was watching. So like My Tennis HQ, Felix from Tennis Brothers, like those guys, and I thought I'll give it a go myself and try and put my own journey on there and put my own spin on my own YouTube channel.
Yeah, and it's great, and you're really good at already at the edit. For me, it took a long time to get decent at like getting the video quality, the editing and stuff. But did that come
Yeah.
natural to you? Did you do a lot of research?
So before I embark in different projects, I do a lot of research before. So I did a lot of research on how to start a YouTube channel and how to do it well. So that's when I knew that it was going to be like a bit of a long haul and like it was going to take a lot of time to get better. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I had to really put that aside for the YouTube channel because you got to like get going, get the content out, and you can't stay too long on one project. So I kind of set myself the goal from the start of learning like an editing skill, and then each video trying to like learn one new editing skill, whether that be like in the thumbnail or in the video. So hopefully each video gets better as I go along.
Yeah, you have that Notion is also in your Notion template, like how organized and structured you are. Is that
Yeah.
helping you as as a player? You think when this organization that you have?
Yeah, 100%. I use Notion for all aspects of my life as well. So whether it be like my home life or when I was at university doing schoolwork and stuff. So I knew Notion quite well, and I hadn't seen anyone do it for tennis before. So I thought I'd make one mainly for myself. Like I made it for myself at first, and then when I started doing the YouTube, people were interested when I was showing it on the YouTube channel. So I thought I'd make a template for other people to buy and use it.
And you use that daily, right? You track everything pretty much that you're doing.
Yeah. It's a daily thing. So like you wake up in the morning and then you see what your goals are for the day or whatever. And I think that's what's quite important because like in other goal sheets that I've had in the past, like you set your goals at the start of term, for example, and then after like 3 or 4 weeks you kind of forget about them, and then you look back at it in years time and you make a new one and you don't really see that progress. So I think having like that daily or like weekly look at it, and then you can really see how you're progressing, and then keeping track of stuff that your coaches tell you, I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. I think having organization also takes a lot of stress out of it because it's stressful to be a tennis player or a human being in general. But if you can have some organization, you at least know where you are, you know where your goals are, you can kind of work alongside that, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I'm quite an analytical person, so it works really well for me. I can imagine if you like other people who are a bit more kind of like free, or you know what I mean, like wouldn't really work so well for them. But I feel like there's a lot of players who have that analytical type of mind that would really benefit from something like this.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's great. So what's happening in your life now? Are you planning tournaments? Are you playing UTRs? Are you playing ITF futures?
Yeah, so my goal in the next month or so is to start getting back on the future circuit and just trying to grind out those tournaments. I played a lot of British tour tournaments, which is kind of like men's national tournaments in the UK in the past. I kind of like dabbled in doing the futures over like the last 5 or 6 years, I'd say, but I'd never really committed to doing a lot of tournaments in one year. I probably only did max like 2 or 3 tournaments in one year. So as of the next few months, I'm going to really try and do quite a lot more. I'd like to do more than I plan to, but obviously I'm 25 and I've got a budget and I've got a coach to earn some money as well. So I can't do as many as I'd like right now, but I'm going to try and improve over the next couple of months and then go back out there and aim to do probably like one tournament a month for the moment.
So what's your kind of pros and cons as a player? Where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses in terms of like being a successful competitive player?
Yeah, so I'm relatively small, so I'm about 5'8.5". So my serve is probably one of my weaknesses. Like, doesn't mean you can't have a good serve if you're small, obviously, but like throughout my whole tennis life, my serve's kind of let me down a little bit. So I'd say that's kind of like my biggest weakness. Returning, I'm usually quite good at, but having recently played with kind of like the ATP point level, people ranked around 1,000, I do feel like I need to improve my returns a bit. But just generally, just like fighting on the court, running a lot of balls down, and then once I get on my forehand and I get a bit confident with it, then that's probably one of my strongest shots.
Yeah, so your forehand, like working your game around the forehand, makes sense. And
Mhm.
you probably, if you're not so tall, which I'm not either, you're probably a decent runner around the court. You're a good mover.
Yeah, yeah, that's what won me a lot of matches, especially in juniors, just chasing down a lot of balls and kind of like essentially out grinding my opponents a bit.
Yeah, yeah, that's the way to do it. So what's your favorite surface? Do you like clay then or hard courts?
Yeah, so I played quite a lot in France when I was younger. We used to go on family holidays to Normandy, and a lot of the tournaments there were on clay. So I got used to playing on clay, and I like that a lot. But also like a slow hard court because a lot of the courts in the UK are hard. So outdoor slow hard courts I enjoy as well.
So you're not the typical Brit with the preference for grass, right?
No, I mean like I kind of like I'm a bit mixed in my game because like obviously I've grown up on like fast indoor hard courts and like faster astro surfaces. So like I do enjoy kind of like rushing the net a little bit, but then I don't know. I feel like I'm a bit mixed. Like sometimes I enjoy coming in and then I get past a bit sometimes. But yeah, I need to find a way to use that in my own game just because I do have some skills of like being able to like do like a low slice coming in, rush taking returns really early. So I need to try and maybe use that as a surprise element a bit more in my actual game style.
Yeah, it's tough to balance that because it's like it sometimes feels like you're rushing the point when you're doing these things. Like if you're playing, you're like, okay, why did I go in there? It might have been you're not staying in the rally and just going toe to toe. So it's always
Yeah,
seems like a balance. It's very easy to rush points and then lose unnecessary points due to that kind of like stressing it.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I think you just need to be brave with it, right? When you're going to do it, you fully commit to it. Because if you only like 70% commit to it, then it's not going to go well.
No, no, I think that's like everything, right? And so, what's your training regime like? Do you have a coach or do you work with things yourself? Or
So I'd say like whilst I was at university, I had like an individual coach that I worked with pretty much on a daily basis. I still see him probably about like once or twice a week, but as I've got older, as I said before, I need to start like funding things myself a little bit, so I've had to cut down on that, and I'm doing probably about 12 to 17 hours of coaching a week, and then about an hour and a half of hitting with the juniors at the academy. So I'd count that as my training, and then serving practice by myself and just getting hits wherever else I can. So, and then I'll do an hour of S&C with an S&C coach 5 days a week.
that's pretty important. Like, I mean, the game is becoming more and more physical, right? Especially if you're a
Mm-hmm.
grinder and you need to defend, then you need like strength in your legs and the body in general, right? So I think
100%.
yeah, makes a lot of sense. So your coaching, is that something you're passionate about, or is it something like it kind of flows naturally with you as a tennis player?
Yeah, I feel like I started coaching mainly to earn a bit of an income with it, but over time I have actually gradually really enjoyed the coaching element of it, especially when you work with players for like over like 1 or 2 years, and you can really see their improvements. Like all coaches will know how rewarding it is when you see players like see the work that you did with them, you see technical development, and then the transfer into tournament wins. So I do really enjoy that, but I'd say coaching probably would be a main focus more down the line after I finish my playing career, and I want to play for as long as I can. So I'd say coaching is an important part of my tennis life, but it'll become more important down the line as I focus on my own playing journey right now.
Were you always wanting to go pro as since you were a junior, or was that something that kind of crept up maybe after the pandemic or something like that?
No, it's something that I've always wanted since a young age, and that's always been a goal for me. I'd say since the pandemic, obviously it was a bit difficult because I wanted to. That was a year where I wanted to play a lot of futures, like that 2020 year, because that was like my final year at university, and they allowed me to come out and play a lot of tournaments, and so I was going to play a lot of tournaments that year, and obviously it couldn't happen, and then no one played that much that year, and then suddenly I'm an adult and I've got to start earning some money and do some coaching and stuff, so that kind of put things on the back burner. But now I'm a bit older, I've got a little bit of a budget to do it, so I can go out and give it a proper go.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing. Also, you get some maturity. Sometimes that's kind of helpful that you will maybe you have a little bit of money, you have some income at least. So, because the
Mm-hmm.
grind is quite expensive and it's
Yeah,
pretty draining as well. Have you noticed that when
yeah.
you're traveling around, like that's how tough it is to just get a point? This is quite a struggle.
Yeah, it's really, really tough. I mean, as I said, like I've only done like max probably like 3 or 4 futures in 1 year. So like having just done that, I can definitely see how tough it would be if you're doing it like every week, every other week. I mean, you see guys traveling around in like their camper vans, just like sleeping at different tournaments, just playing every single week. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Do you think there's a way they could approach that better, like the system of tennis? Is it like all this traveling and like to have maybe tournaments in one region of the world for a while and then you change the region, or is there something you've been thinking about, like how draining it is with all the travel?
I think you see a lot more players from a certain country who have ATP points when there are a lot of futures in that country. So like,
Yeah.
especially in Spain, there's so many futures there, or like, I don't know, other countries where there's a lot of futures in that country and they can just travel around their own country playing a lot of tournaments, and you see more players from that country have ATP points in other countries. So I think there's definitely something to that, but then you also need to get good at the travel element, because that is what it is like on the Pro Tour as well. So I think you need a balance.
Yeah, and you need to, in travel, like you need to find your routines, like, and especially if you're an organized person, it can be tough to change like your routine because you're in a new place, you're sleeping in a new bed, and the
Yeah.
conditions are not always like optimal, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you can create like your own routines whilst you travel. There's like stuff that changes whilst you travel, but as long as you keep some continuity in like the way that you approach each day, like having a routine with the way that you train and prepare for a match, then I think you can keep that continuity.
So how difficult is for you where you live now to find like good hitting partners? I think some people talk about that, like it's tricky to find you know, a variety of partners because if you play the same guy, we all know like your game gets kind of two-dimensional around this person, right?
Yeah, so I'm quite lucky with where I live because I don't live too far away from London, and there's a lot of players in London who have some ATP points. So um, as well as hitting with the players at the academy, there's a lot of people around me who are a bit older who are competing on the future circuit that I message when they're back in the UK that I can hit with. So I think my hitting partners are a pretty strong level, so I'm quite lucky on that front.
Yeah, and that's really the best way to improve is to play with better players, really. Like that's the
Yeah,
ultimate. If you can
yeah,
switch that up. Yeah.
yeah.
How is
I
it
think I
with
think you
in?
need. Sorry, I think you need like a balance of everyone you play against. I think if you just play against better players and you struggle to improve, I think you need to play against people who are like a bit worse than you, the same level, and better than you. And I think that's something that I've heard from like the LTA quite a lot when they're setting up the programs for the junior players in this country. Is that you have like a well-rounded field of players that you're playing against, so that you get used to playing with all levels, and that you can, if you go to a tournament, you play someone who's worse than you get in that first round, and you're really able to like dominate your game and really get on top of it. And then you play someone who's better than you, and you just get used to playing with all those levels.
Yeah, I think it's important in tennis, and that's something they teach in international coaching accreditation is that you
Yeah,
need to get wins, right? So it's like for confidence, if you're a competitive player. So if you're playing always guys that are better, you're gonna feel horrible, right? Like you're always feeling worse, and you're losing, even if you know that they are one, two levels above you. So
yeah,
then you need to kind of step down. That's what they guess recommends. Like you step down so you feel like you can build the confidence. Is that
yeah.
something you notice as well? How important confidence is in tennis?
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that I lacked quite a little bit when I was younger. I was like, obviously, a bit of an anxious tennis player. So I think confidence is something that I've developed over time. And I think that's something that I've learned that doesn't come from getting wins over and over again, but you can gain confidence in other ways when you go into matches. And I think that just comes with, as we said before, with a bit of maturity.
Yeah, exactly. You can get confidence from life in general, or like working on your own personal
Yeah,
development stuff like that. So that's true. You don't only need wins, but wins help, of
yeah,
course, because
yeah,
you get used
100%.
to a
Yeah,
match
obviously.
situation.
Yeah, of course. If you go into a tournament having only had losses, then it's going to be tough.
Yeah, tennis is such a trend game. Like you always feel the trend. It's a trend in a match, and then it's a trend in your career, and then it's a trend in
Yeah,
your life. It's always in trends, kind of.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So when you're devising your schedule and everything now that you're so organized, like what are you thinking about for the year? How to optimize your kind of your chances of improving and doing well as a pro?
Um, yeah, I think you just gotta. I mean, like I did a video recently where I spoke to some of like the professional players that are playing around, to like Simon, Felix, and Carew, and like I got quite a lot of good advice from them. But one thing that they said was that everyone's different, and there isn't one system that's going to get you the best results. Like some players like to play all year round tournaments every single week. Some players like to do a little training block and go out again. But generally, I think the consensus is that if you do like 2 weeks of tournaments and 2 weeks of training, that's like the best way to get the best results, because then you're able to come back, work on a few things, but then you get the continuity of playing like a couple matches in a row. And then if you keep going back like that, then you can keep on getting the improvement as well as trying to put it into results. So I think that's something that I'm going to try to do when I plan out my tournaments. And then with regards to the actual tournaments that I play, it's honestly just going to be the cheapest ones that I can do that I'm going to get in at first, because I don't have any ATP points right now. So I don't even have an ITF Transition Tour ranking. So that's going to be my first goal, is to get the ITF Transition Tour ranking. And then once I get that, then I can have a bit more flexibility with the tournaments that I'm choosing to play.
How do you get the ITF Transition Tour ranking?
You have to, I think you have to reach the last 16 of the qualifying. So if it's 32 draw, it's just one match. But if it's 64, then you've obviously got to win two matches in the qualifying.
Yeah, okay, so it makes sense because the system of tennis is very complicated sometimes with all the points, like counting points. There's ITF Challenger and the ATP, of course, and then you have the Grand Slams, which are separate organizations. So how do you
Mhm.
keep track of all what's required of a tennis player? Because the tournaments also have kind of different rules, or like now you have to enter this, you have to do this. It's like not easy
Yeah.
job to have.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is tough, but I'm just laughing because I'm about to say you have to become a bit of a nerd with tennis to try and
Yeah.
understand everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, because there's so many things. I mean, you're alone, right? So, I mean, unless you're a
Yeah.
doubles team, maybe a bit easier, but you have to, like, you're running your own little company if you're as a pro player, and you
Yeah.
have to do everything unless you can pay people to do it, which is not coming very early in your career. Like, you need to struggle
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's where organization comes back into it as well. Because if you're not organized, then you're not going to be optimizing your best level.
No, 100%. That's a good idea. So doubles, is that something you're thinking about, or you're playing a lot of doubles, or mainly singles?
I've been the academy that I train at. We have what we call doubles Wednesdays. So we do doubles drills in the morning and then match play in the afternoon. And that's something that I lacked quite a bit when I was younger. But I feel like over the last 2 years, I've done a lot more doubles play. So if I was going to go play with someone who's like higher ranked doubles player, I'd feel quite confident with knowing the ins and outs of doubles and different tactics that you can use, where you should place the ball. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do doubles at all the tournaments that I go to if I can find a partner. And then maybe once I get a bit older, if I get into my 30s, I might transition to just playing doubles. But we'll see when I get there.
Yeah, it seems like a viable route. I mean, you don't make as much money, of course, in doubles, but there's
No.
also a potential that it might grow at some point, the doubles game, because it's,
Yeah.
there's interest in it. And if you look at clubs, most of the veteran players and rec players play
Yeah.
more doubles probably than singles.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can carry on playing doubles like in quite a like an older age. Like um I've been hitting with a guy called VJ recently, and he just broke the top 100 for the first time at 37 years old, and he's been playing on the futures since he was like 20. So like he got to like career high of like 300 in singles, I think like in like 2015, 2016, and then like the last like 6, 7 years, he's just been focusing on doubles. And like it's crazy that you can reach your peak career high ranking at 37 years old. And I think that's really inspiring for people like me who are like I'm 25, and that's like over 10 years away. So it gives me a lot of hope with my game.
Yeah, we had like Rohan Bopana, right? He's 43 or 42. He was like world
Yeah,
number one.
yeah. Well, number one first time. So you reach the peak in your career at 40s, which is would be unheard of like 20 years ago.
Yeah, now, I mean, people used to age faster, right? We take better care of ourselves now. We can eat better with the right information. So we have more information. We can track our progress and our sleep and our everything. Uh,
Yeah.
by the way, do you track that? Do you track sleep? Do you track everything since you're an ocean freak?
Yeah, so on my Notion template, there is a page that I've called player loads. So it's going to be like your load monitoring. So you figure out how essentially intense your training was each week, and then you can track that in like a weekly table, and then you can see how much you've been training, if you're under training, if you're overtraining, and then a bit below that, I track your mood for each day, your the amount of sleep you got, and the amount of energy you subjectively felt, and then you get an average for the end of the week, and then you can keep that in a table for each week as you're going down. I think that'll be quite useful for when I play more tournaments, because if I have like a streak of bad results, I can look back to that and be like, okay, maybe I wasn't getting enough sleep at this time. Maybe it wasn't actually my tennis. And then you can actually really diagnose what the problems were and try and figure out how to actually improve. And maybe you don't need to improve your game. Maybe you just need to get more sleep on a certain week or something. And so you can actually focus on the right area.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds like good. How's your diet? Like, do you find that easy to maintain a good diet, or that's the tricky part of it?
No, I grew up with a good diet. Luckily, my mum was very good at, I guess, like making me meals that are really healthy. So from that, I've learned lots of different healthy meals, and I've just transferred that into my adult life. So I find it quite easy to do that.
Yeah, and you stay away from partying and drinking as much as you can, or
I mean, I don't drink at all. So that's something that I just decided when I was about like 15, 16. I was just like, right, it's not for me. I don't really enjoy partying either. So I'm like quite a boring person. Just do making YouTube videos in my bedroom all day, playing a bit of tennis. But yeah, partying and that stuff's not for me. I enjoy other things.
yeah, I don't think that means you're a boring person. I think it's a pretty sensible choice, I guess. Like, I think it's also changing a bit because I think before you were like, people could shame people for, especially, I mean, the UK is kind of like a drinking culture, right? So
Yeah.
if you're not out drinking pints, you're looked at as a
Mhm.
bit of an oddity. People will, but it's really is like the most sensible, smart choice, and you can have a really
Yeah.
fulfilling, rewarding life, without
Yeah.
drinks. I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you're
Yeah.
a pro
I think,
athlete, you shouldn't.
yeah. Yeah, especially if you're a pro athlete. But I think even just a lot of people like around my age, like, are drinking less. Like my girlfriend, she doesn't really drink either, and like her friendship group, they hardly drink as well. I think just like the amount of drinking has gone down a lot in the younger ages of the youth these days.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a good unless they smoke weed like every day, which could be a little bit tough because that's also a lifestyle thing, you know, you can get into a bit sidetracked with.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so YouTube documenting your journey. Like, are you gonna show
Yeah.
full matches? Are you gonna do highlights, vlogging? What kind of the style you have in mind for doing more of this
Um,
journey?
have you seen much of Jules Marie
Yeah. Yeah.
on his YouTube channel? I really like the way that he does his videos, where he like the bit of a longer style for the tournaments. So he does like his traveling, he does like the preparation, then he does a bit of the match play, then he does an analysis after. So I might do a similar style to that, do a little bit of a longer style video for my matches, and include a bit more like of the preparation and the afterwards of the match as well. But I was looking at the ITF rules for videoing matches, and I read somewhere that it was a strange rule, but I think it was something like you're only allowed to include 10 minutes worth of highlights from a match and post on social media. So I don't really know if that's accurate or not. I've seen other people post more or whatever, but I'll probably stick to what I read in the ITF. So I'll probably do about max 10 minutes of highlights for a match on the future circuit.
It's tricky. I mean, I always thought about that, like with the rules, because now everybody has a smartphone. A lot of people are
Yeah,
doing YouTube journeys, or I mean, I think it's one of the most easy ways to recommend to a player who's any level, like record
yeah,
yourself, look back, maybe with a coach, what's
yeah.
happening, what's going on,
Hmm.
right? And I think they need to have some allowance for this. I don't know what the issue would be if you would post like a full match, but
Yeah, I have no idea. It seems strange, but yeah, you're not allowed to record on your phone either. You have to have like a GoPro or something because anything that doesn't have live streaming capabilities, so they don't
okay.
allow you to do your phone. So you have to do it on like a GoPro.
Oh wow, so must be
That's
pretty
just
new rules. Yeah.
yeah. I think they're changing all the time though, so I think it's quite important to like stay up to date with them and stay in communication with them just to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. But yeah, I mean, like that's only at the futures tournaments. So like at the LTA tournaments in the UK, like the British tours, like I think it's a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, because I think always like you have to allow a lot of media creation for something to
Hmm.
grow. And like YouTube is huge these days, and new
Yeah,
generation watch a lot of YouTube over Netflix and stuff like that. So if you're not allowing for
yeah,
documentation of this stuff, you're not gonna grow
yeah,
the sport naturally, right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and they do allow the documentation because they allow you to do it on like the GoPro. It's just limited with. I mean, not everyone has a GoPro, right?
No, no, I don't have a
But everyone
GoPro.
has a
I
phone, so
always use my phone, right?
yeah,
Mainly, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
You
like for
don't,
all my videos, like so far, I've been using my phone. So
yeah, and it's fine. Like I have two iPhones I use. Like I said, I have one for
yeah,
more phoning and then I one for more recording, and I can use both if needed, right? So
yeah,
I've dabbled with like 4K mirrorless cams and stuff like that, but it's so much to lug around, and
mhm,
like to record yourself playing is very tough with because it's so heavy as well. So this camera's
yeah,
gonna fall over, and it's like quite a lot of money going into the ground.
yeah,
You can't really easily fasten it somewhere.
yeah. And when I was doing my research on YouTube, and a lot of the big YouTubers or what the big channels said was that the first thing to invest in is your audio quality rather than your camera quality, because viewers are more likely to click off if you have bad audio rather than bad video quality. So that's what I invested in first. I got better mics, and then over time I might get a good camera. But I think the iPhone cameras are pretty good, especially in my type of videos as well, because I do a lot of editing with like graphics and stuff. So the actual camera quality of my videos isn't as important as for someone like the tennis mentor, for example.
No, I think that is a good point. Like if you, it depends on your style. Like, and if it's a lot of hitting, I like any kind of hitting. I think the iPhone works perfectly. I don't think there's any,
Yeah,
or iPhone or a smartphone, whatever. But like
yeah,
maybe vlogs, yes, if you want your vlog to look really crisp, although I don't do that, but
yeah.
then you should maybe get like a proper camera, right? So you have the better focus. But you don't need that
Yeah,
for like vlogging around or walking around like in a cafeteria. You want to shoot like
no,
yourself
exactly.
doing some rehab or something.
No. But also, I think the beauty of YouTube, it's quite raw as well, right? Because you get like the people creating from home, and like some of the biggest YouTubers just have like quite low quality raw footage, and they do quite well. So I think that kind of adds to the style a little bit, especially if you're on the road and you're filming on your iPhone and the quality's not that great. I think that adds to the video.
I think so too. I'm more of a fan of the raw format. Like I don't like it when
Yeah,
it's overproduced. I think
hmm,
it feels a little bit too much like TV, you know, which is we're
yeah,
not watching for a reason, right? So
yeah,
I think sometimes it goes too far with the production. You're like, you know, it's not as exciting You want to get kind of a more personal take on something, and then if it feels like Hollywood, it's not going to be very personal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's good, but it's a fun journey, and I really commend people for doing it. I think it's great because you also teach people a lot about the journey, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a lesson for everyone. And also, it's nice to see good hitting. I think people get really excited about seeing players of all levels, but skilled
Mhm.
players play tennis. It's always fun.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. I mean, I enjoyed watching a lot of these channels before I even started my own one. So I was a fan before I started being a creator as well.
What would be is there something that where you feel like you might be distracted from your tennis playing by recording and editing?
Um, I mean, I don't really mind having the camera behind me whilst I'm playing, so I don't really get distracted whilst I'm playing there because I did film some of my matches before to look back on it, so that doesn't really affect me. But the editing takes forever, so I can imagine if I'm traveling around the tournaments then and I'm trying to get good sleep for a match, then that could be a problem. But then you also have a lot of downtime whilst you're playing as well. Like, I mean, I'm doing so much coaching, so much training all the time, and doing like daily life things. Yeah, I'm still finding the time to do the editing whilst I'm at home. I can imagine whilst I'm at a tournament, I don't have to do the coaching. I don't have to do like the life stuff that you'd have to do at home. So I think it will work out. I'll have more time to do the editing when I'm in my hotel room, for example.
Yeah, I think there's always room for it. I've noticed that it's just very time consuming, like depending on how many videos you drop per week, right? But it's people don't realize sometimes it's like how much work goes into a video besides just the
Mm-hmm.
recording of it, which can be, although you can
Yeah,
have a lot of files if you're recording vlog stuff in the gym and then you
yeah,
have a set play or
yeah,
whatever, right? So
yeah,
are you
exactly. I
gonna
mean, like the recording, I don't even like take notice of really. Like, doesn't even count as part of making the video for me. Like, as soon as I sit down and have all the footage on my laptop and start editing, that's like, right, now's the time to actually start making the video.
how do you edit? Do you use like Final Cut or do you have other software you use?
I use DaVinci Resolve.
So
So yeah,
pro software. People don't really know about that one. A lot, yeah.
but it's actually free, which is crazy.
It is. I didn't know that.
Yeah, DaVinci Resolve is free, and then you only have to have the paid version if you want to do something crazy like make a movie for like the crazy effects. But you have all the same effects as like Premiere Pro and like Final Cut for free in DaVinci Resolve.
Oh wow, that's pretty. How do they make money? Do you know?
I don't know. I guess it's the software used for like big movies. So
Yeah,
when like they make most of the money from that, I guess.
yeah. So it's pretty advanced to use then, I guess. Or is it a lot of
Yeah.
functions you have to?
Yeah, but I mean, you watch YouTube videos and you learn. So
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly. This
And
is great. Like, yeah.
yeah,
So when you're playing, so what key question on tennis nerd by among tennis nerds is like what rackets and
yeah.
strings you're using?
I've got my
Oh yeah,
racket
very
here
good.
for you. So I use the Pure Aero. I think this is 2023 one, and then I've recently switched to using the RPM Power.
Ah, okay. So you're with the Dominic Thiem string, right? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so I use RPM Blast for ages, but then when I actually use the old Pure Aero Tour, and I use RPM Blast on that, and I love that combo. But when I went to the new Pure Aeros and I used the RPM Blast, I didn't like the feeling of it. So I experimented with a few strings. I tried Luxilon 4G, which I loved, but it's just too expensive, and I've got to use Babolat at the academy. So then I tried out some other Babolat strings, and then the RPM Power didn't feel too distant from the Blast, and it was a bit crisper. So I'm enjoying that right now.
Do you string yourself or?
I do, yeah. So I string on the manual at 50.
Oh wow, oh, yeah. So manual machine. So yeah, it's like a drop weight or a crank.
Yeah,
A
wine.
crank. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because
But
like
yeah,
RPM Blast has this kind of oh no, RPM Power has this clickety clack sound when you string. It feels like you're stringing like some
oh my
kind of
god,
the piano string.
I thought, is this string broken or something? Like, did I get like a bad packet when I first started stringing it? I was in my room stringing it, and my girlfriend was on the sofa. She was like, "What is that sound?" It was absolutely crazy. It's like horrible when you string it, but after you start playing with it, after a few hits, you're like, "Okay, it's actually okay." But yeah, stringing it, I was like, "Oh my god, this feels so strange."
Yeah, it's one of those strings that takes you a bit aback when you start stringing. I mean, it plays fine. I liked it as well, but it's like
Yeah,
this process of it's like, what is this? Because it's so different from how other strings. And usually, if you
yeah,
string a lot and you test a lot, you prefer like a round coated string because it just
yeah,
glides through the machine, right? So easy.
yeah, exactly. This one was like squeaking and everything, and I was like, "This is strange."
Yeah, yeah. But if Tommy likes it, I think it's also like sometimes a sign of approval. Like if there's a strong pro playing with you, you're like, okay, then it can't be. It's not like it's
Yeah,
bad because you can get second thoughts when you have that string inside. You're like, maybe this will break in like 2 hours or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. No, the actually durability of the string I think is really good. It does drop tension a little bit, but I quite like loose strings, so I don't really mind it too much.
No, no. If you're playing like with some topspin, like usually loose strings, it's not bad. You don't have to go down to Manarino, but you can play
Yeah,
with a lower
yeah.
tension. So do you add
And
any
then
weight to the racket?
yeah, so I was about to say, I got these matched and weighted up. So my old Pure Aero tools were 315, but when I got them like actually properly assessed and to try and match it to that spec, it was actually 312. So these rackets are 312, and the swing weight is 288, which I guess is quite light, unstrung.
Wow. So you don't have no added weights like in the head, pretty much then.
Uh, there is one racket that I have that was added in the head because it
Mm.
was imbalanced compared to the other ones. But the Pure Aero tools, the swing weight was so light, and I got really used to that. So the stock, like off the shelf of the new Pure Aeros, is actually a high swing weight than the 315-gram Pure Aero tool, which I was a bit surprised by. But I quite like doing like short angles and stuff, so I find having a lower swing weight, a bit of a whippier racket, easier to do that with.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also that's changing a lot. Like they most players today are playing lower swing weights than back in the day.
Yeah.
And I just saw like my friend got Nishioka's racket, for example, and that was
Hmm.
320 strong. So that's pretty much the
Yeah.
same as your spec.
Yeah.
And he uses like
Yeah.
natural
Interesting.
gut, so it'll get a bit more power from that. But a lot of
Yeah.
players are using lighter,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I didn't really know too much about the different specs that the pros were using. I did a little bit of research on it when I was weighting these ones up, and I was like, oh my god, my swing weight is so light compared to all of them. So I got a bit worried about that. But now you said that, um, some of the pros have a similar swing weight, then I'm a bit more chilled about it now.
Yeah, you can always experiment going up. Like I did this video now for my members, which is about like heavy rackets, where my friend Daniel, who plays pretty high level, like slightly below futures, but he could do some
Hmm.
qualifying.
Yeah.
He now plays with like a super heavy racket, like 360 grams strong, which is
Wow.
it's a pure Aero VS, and he
Okay.
plays with very head-like balance, so most of the weight is in the handle. He likes it like that because he liked old school rackets, and then
Yeah.
he adds like weight up to like 340 swing weight, so about 20
Right.
points more than you. And he likes how the racket just gives him more. He doesn't have, feels like he has to do less, but it's completely based on style and preference. So it's like this type of
Hmm.
thing. It's not easy to give just like random advice. It's like whatever
Yeah.
works for you. And for example, flicks and angles on a 100 square inch racket, yeah, you can't go too high because your racket's going to feel like a log.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I think you can obviously, like, everyone's interested in specs of rackets and like experimenting with different stuff, but good tennis players are able to beat other tennis players no matter what equipment they're using. So I think focusing on a lot on your own game and then finding something that suits your own game is important, and not getting too stressed about what everyone else is using.
No, 100%. Like the best idea is just to like take something you like, buy 3 or 4, and then stick with
Yeah.
that. Like don't even think about it. Like because unless you're playing and you wanna on like top 10 and you wanna maybe add like a margin here there, you can tweak
Yeah.
1-2 grams. But
Yeah.
for most rec players that get really obsessed about this, myself have included in the past, uh, you're just like taking time away from focusing on improving your game, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's the number one advice. It's fun to think about gear with cameras, with cars, with rackets, with the guitars. I play guitar.
Yeah.
But then
I
you're
do.
like, if
I
it's the
love music
actual
as well.
playing. Oh, yeah? Oh, that's cool. You
Yeah.
play guitar as well, or no?
I play the drums and a bit of piano, but I do a lot of music production in Logic Pro, so that's why the sound design for my videos come quite naturally to me.
Oh, wow, that's nice. All right. So
Yeah.
but what kind of music do you make? Do you record music as well?
I make lo-fi, like chill beats,
Oh,
lo-fi.
wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Just
So
a
you
bit
can
of
make
fun.
money from that as well. Like you upload to like Epidemic Sound or something like that, and then you're making
Yeah,
money,
no, I
right?
could do. I was just gonna interest in that, but recently, now that the YouTube's taken over a little bit, I've had a bit less time for it, and I've been focusing more on the videos. But I want to find some time to get back into it.
Do you have like this becomes nerdy in another direction, but do you have like a good MIDI controller you can recommend, or like do you have a MIDI keyboard or something set up there you're using?
Yeah, I can't remember its name though. I think it's like, oh, I'll send it to you after. I'll take a picture of it
Yeah,
and send it to you.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm into that. Like I record guitar and stuff, but I always used to love like some piano, music production stuff, and I have friends
Yeah.
who are in that industry, so that's kind of something I'm nerdy about as well. So it's like
Yeah, me too.
it's also
I love it.
relaxing music. I think it's a great complement to tennis because it's a bit
Yeah, I
different.
agree.
Like you do tennis, and then I'm also into kind of organization, or I run a business, so I'm like, okay, I have
Mhm.
to keep my life in track. So like music
Yeah.
takes you out of that zone completely, or completely different space, right?
100% agree. And it's interesting because it's like similar but different. So like when you play a tennis match and you really like in the zone, you've probably heard this before, but the flow state where you're like just playing
Yeah.
without thinking, I think you can get into that same flow state when you're making music as well. Like you just completely get in the zone. You don't really have any other thoughts happening. And I think just like in a way it's different. It takes you out of it. You don't focus about it, but you also practice getting into that flow state, and that also transfers into tennis. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the key things is to be in the flow state. You talk about that like in the Inner Game of Tennis, one of like the best
Yeah,
mental tennis books.
that's my favorite book of all time.
Yeah, it's the best one. I really think it's like it opens your mind to what's most important. Really, it's like partly the
Yeah.
enjoyment of it, but also like how important it is to channel your energy in the right way, because you can be super anxious. Everybody's anxious when they play tennis. It's a tough game to play, right?
Yeah.
The tricky thing with tennis compared to music is like in music you control your own flow state, right? So you're in flow state, you're feeling it, you're vibing with the music, you're enjoying it. In tennis, there's someone on the other side of the net who's trying to kill your flow state, right? That's the interesting part of it. Yeah. You don't have that in music where someone is like, "Oh, let me disturb your flow here, mate." You know?
Exactly. Yeah, but it's cool.
How do you think about flow state when you play tennis? Like do you have any mental tricks? Do you try to not think about your opponent? Are you I would assume you're not one of those guys who like to kind of poke your opponent a bit to make him play worse. You're more in your own bubble, right?
Yeah, no, I'm very like straight faced when I play tennis. I don't really show too much emotion, so I'm not really too negative. I'm not overly positive either. And in a game of tennis, there's an interesting paragraph where he talks about how you need to like be the umpire. You don't have like any emotion one way or the other. You just that's a point. I lost that point by hitting this shot, and now I move on. And you don't really have any emotional attachment to it. And that's something that I found really interesting. And I think quite a lot of coaches actually disagree with that because they think you watch the pros and you see like Nadal, Djokovic, or Federer, even Federer smash the racket at some point and they show emotion and they move on from it. So I think it's a way of balancing like having a little bit of emotion, but then not getting too attached to it at the same time. But yeah, I play my best when I'm just in the zone and focusing on whatever, like in a game of tennis, he talks about the seams of the ball, but just on any sort of sensation to bring your mind to the present moment. Like with Djokovic does a lot of meditation. It's the same thing, just like bringing your focus to a single point and then just letting your body perform. And I think that's the most important thing for tennis.
Yeah, exactly. And people deal with it differently. Some people need to be able to kind of just throw out their anger or their frustration.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm playing around with that sometimes. Like even if I play on like the ITF's Masters Tour, which is like the old like plus 30 tour, right? And you play competitive matches and you feel like frustration build up. It also depends on what's going on in your life in general, right? But I'm also kind of straight faced, you know, kind of, and I like Bjorn Borg, Federer kind of style. Like let's just keep it no emotion.
Yeah, I'm the same.
But sometimes it's good, I've realized, to just because you can get like low on energy that way, right? As well, like you have to control your energy, and you don't want to be that. You don't want to be like low on energy because you're like managing your emotions. You want to like have an outburst maybe so you can inject some energy. So it's a bit tricky to manage it sometimes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, like I'm not completely knowledgeable. Like I'm not world number one, so like I don't know it all, but I know that what I learned from the inner game of tennis really helped me with my own game up to a certain point, and then I think you can use that as a base and then adapt it from that for what works best for you. Because as you said, everyone's not the same. Like I teach the fundamentals of the inner game of tennis to all the players that I'm coaching, and then I say use it, see how it works for you, and then if there's some stuff you don't like about it, let's discuss it, and then we can add in what's best for your personality and how you're going to perform the best on the court.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great way of doing it. But it's also a journey. Like you see players struggle with it, like on the top pro level. Like it's like, okay, this guy is now in a slump. Sometimes they change the team. Like you see a lot of like it's a coach breakup, something going on with their life. Like it's always, and it's so personal because it's a solo sport. So you like a team, you can say, okay, what's happening in the team? You know, there's a team energy or the team chemistry is bad. You know, you change players, you change coach, you do whatever. But you have everything internal in tennis. It's like a lot of it's internal. If you don't have a team, I mean, if you have a team, it could be that as well. But it's mainly you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I find all that mental side of stuff really interesting.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of tennis because I think I usually compare it to like it's like UFC without you having to hit the other guy, right? But it's like it's that energy of like you're in your own space, but you have another guy trying to get you out of that space, you know. So it's like that kind of struggle always, you know. And I used to play chess, high level chess, and for me it's similar in that sense. But with tennis, you have obviously the physical movement as well, which is nice. But you still have to think what is my opponent thinking? What is he planning? How is and of your own, like where am I going to go with this, match or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's like having that balance between analyzing the match but not over analyzing and taking yourself out of the flow state. So it's a system that I developed for myself is that you do most of your analysing at the change of ends, and then once you get out from the change of ends, you go play the point. You might do like a little bit of analysing, but whilst you're between the points, you're still trying to stay in that flow state. And a lot of stuff that you talk about in the inner game of tennis is focusing on feelings and visualization rather than words. So I'll think about words when I'm on the change of ends. I'll talk through thinking about analysing how's it going, and then when I'm in between points, I think, okay, I missed that shot, but then I'll visualize where I should have actually hit that ball rather than telling myself I need to hit that cross court. I'll just see it in my head and see that ball going cross court so that I don't take myself out of that flow state. And like I'm not 100% good at it. Like it takes a lot of time and practice. I'd say that I rate myself probably like a 4 out of 10 for the ability to do that during a match, and that's something I need to improve at. But I think I have the knowledge of what I need to do and how I can improve it whilst I'm training and playing matches now.
Yeah, visualization seems important. Like even before matches, to like, okay, this is the scene, and this is what I want to accomplish, and building that. I've never been really good at that, but it's something definitely worth to look into if you, because now I mean, tennis is all about looking for that like 1% every other day or every other week or every other year.
Yeah.
Like how can I improve this, what I'm doing, and being very self-aware. Like where am I leaking points? You know, it could be some behavior you're doing that's leaking points, and if you don't have a coach to tell you, you might have to find out yourself, right?
Yeah, and that's why watching yourself back on video is helpful as well.
Yeah, it's number one, I think, very important. And that's also nice when you play like the tours that allow it. Like if you play the tours that allow it, like you can really analyze, like, you know, because that's the issue when I've talked about this with other people on the podcast. Is like highlights sometimes, if you do short highlights, you don't have the storyline of what's actually happening. So if you only saw highlights of a match, you can't really tell. Like unless someone narrates the story, you can't really know what's happening in the match. So that's so important to paint a picture of like where was I, what was happening, because you can play 6 beautiful points, but you still lose 3 games. Like it's how it is in tennis.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that I could actually do in my future videos, and other tennis YouTubers could do, is focus more on the story element of the match rather than just the tennis and the highlights, and just frame it in a way, maybe put some like emotional music at like a certain point, or tension music, and really use it in a way to like portray the story of the match, yet still keeping the tennis in there. And I think that would be quite entertaining for viewers and show the more reality of what actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's important. I think you have to paint the story, because that gets more interesting, and also it's more learning for you as well. Like so if you have in your head like what was the arc, like a movie of this match. Now I started really well, then I had like a mental breakdown of some kind, or something happened where I lost focus, which for me sometimes is energy. Like so I expend a lot of energy, play well, and then I kind of hold everything in somehow, and then you drop. And you're like, what's happening? And you don't like, you start to panic, because like, how did I lose 3 games in a row? I was 3-love up, you know, what's happening here?
Exactly.
And that's an interesting storyline to see, you know?
Yeah, but if you don't write that down after the match, you forget it straight away. Like if you lose a match, you come off the court 2 days later, you forget how you felt in that moment. So that's why I think it's really important to do match reports like the day of your match, so that you can really remember the minor details of the match, how you felt at a different time, because that's what's really going to help you improve. I'm going to plug the Notion template again. I do have a section on there for match reports and writing, where you need to improve and like analysis of the match and the pre-match plan. So that's why if you get used to using it on a daily basis, it won't become such a hassle to fill in that match report straight after the match.
Yeah, it's a great habit. I think that's the thing. You have to build good habits, like, and everything that feels like a chore for 4 days, after 5 days, and this is just, you know, throwing days out there, but it's like, then it's more ingrained, and then it's not, you don't even think, it's like brushing your teeth. You don't think about brushing your teeth. So you can always add a good habit and make that into something you do that gives you great benefit. But journaling, I think, I mean, you can do it in life in general, but about tennis, especially since tennis is such an emotional sport, and there's so many ebbs and flows in a match, right? So having that journal, like what happened, why probably did it happen, and can be able to look back, like, okay, so I'm on a good streak. How did I build this streak, or bad, or reverse it? You know, if it's
exactly. It's really important.
Yeah, it's going to be important for anyone going pro to understand this, because if you're just like winging it, you don't have any data really. Like, so you don't have anything to go back and like what's happening, because you're just winging it all the time. It's like, oh, I woke up, I did this, I had 2 beers, and then I played a match. And I've seen top pros, like when I travel to some tournaments. I remember like sitting next to Dustin Brown in the hotel bar at Stuttgart tournament, you know. And he's a fun player, like explosive player and artist, you know. But he beat Zverev in the that round, that day, I saw that match, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sitting next to him, and I'm like, he's having like 2-3 pints of beer. I'm like, how do you? He's
Yeah.
playing like ATP 250 match the next day,
Yeah.
arguably on grass, but it did feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, some celebration, but it was a bit like,
Yeah.
okay, people deal with it differently, you know?
Yeah. But that's his personality, though, right?
Yeah,
And that's where you got
yeah,
to have a balance between where they're trying to make someone play their best tennis without changing their personality, and I think that's really important.
yeah, 100%. I think it's that's the thing. Like you have to find, because I've been close to Nick as well, like seeing his matches from his box and stuff, like curious,
Yeah.
and he's in this constant like flight mode or panic mode. It seems like, you know, he needs
Yeah.
somewhere to channel his energy, kind of like Andy Murray, which he uses his box to just get negative emotions away almost.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
he like enjoys being like that bulldog fight. You know, he likes that.
Yeah.
That's what he goes for. He doesn't even want to win 6-1, 6-1. And if he could, he
Yeah.
wants to win 6-4, 7-6. You know, it's like this
Yeah.
kind of thing,
100%.
at least.
And that's why I think it's dangerous sometimes if you try and drill that out of players. So I think it's being a good coach is understanding your player's personality and then framing your coaching style to the player rather than just having a coaching style that you teach to everyone.
Yeah, because it has to be fun. You know, it has to be fun as well.
Yeah.
And I think tennis, when it's at its most like different in styles, and if you see a guy like Medvedev, Manarin, or whatever, players who play different, that makes tennis more enjoyable. Like if everybody played the same style of tennis and they were all 2 meters tall and hitting bombs from all sides, nobody's going to watch that. Like that's just going to be
No.
like AI playing tennis. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Well, wasn't there a point in time where that kind of was tennis for a bit? In like, I don't know exactly because I wasn't around this time, but like the Sampras days where they had like the massive serves and like the courts at Wimbledon, didn't they change the balls to like make the court slower to try and make it a bit more interesting so that it wasn't just serve and dead ball?
Yeah, exactly. So there was a period, I think, before Fed came, where people lost interest in tennis. I was pretty young at that time, but still, like, I remember it because I grew up watching like Stefan Edberg, like with serve and volley, but there was also a lot of slow clay quarters. And I think Agassi was around there, yeah, at that time. So it was like some flamboyant tennis, but then there was like the big serving period, I think sometime in the 90s or early 2000s, where you had too much serve and people were worried, like, okay, we're going to have just ultra fast courts, people just hitting bombs because this is how you win easy points. And they had to slow it down. And now they're going into that kind of like, there's always in society always seems to be an overreaction. Like there's a reaction to something, but it's sometimes an overreaction. And maybe in tennis, we're in an overreaction where all the courts are the same, right? Because it's like, now it's like the same surface speed, even though it's like clay and hard court. And sometimes grass has still been slowed down.
Grass, I mean, I was lucky enough to play at Wimbledon, I think around 2018 time. And like I played on court number 1 or 2. And I was amazed at how slow those courts were. Because I played British tours on grass courts, like you won't know the space, but like Frinton, people in the UK will know that. And like the grass courts are.
I know it.
Yeah, and like it skids so much, and the bounce is so bad and it's so quick. And then like a couple of weeks later, I went and played at Wimbledon. I was like, oh my god, this just feels like a reasonably quickish hard court, and I was amazed with that. I always watched it on TV thinking it would be the same as like when I played those tournaments, but it's completely different.
Yeah, it's funny how that works as well, and it can also happen even with clay. Like you can have pretty fast. I mean, on a sunny day in Spain, they have where I live. Like they have a lot of courts where like you have it's like a cement court. And then they add like a layer of clay on top, you know, and it doesn't feel as nice and comfortable on your joints, definitely, which I don't like. And it's much faster than, for example, like a clay court where you have like a Roland Garros, we have 3 layers of clay, or there's always ways to, along with the conditions, that you can actually mix up the speeds, which is interesting. But sadly, sometimes now it's maybe being too homogeneous where it's like the same speed everywhere. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's super interesting the way that you can mess around with the surfaces to get different results with speed and like height of bounce and stuff, even on like clay court, like you're saying, with like making it quick or making it slower. I think it's interesting how they actually do that with the materials and stuff. I actually want to research that a bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting topic because I don't think people realize how much it's changed. Like, so it's like it's gone from Australian Open being this surface, then it's this surface, then it's different speeds almost every year or every 3 years.
Yeah.
And same with Wimbledon with the grass. And I've played on grass courts in Germany. I've played on grass courts in Spain and UK. But so it's like you feel like how different the grass is depending on like where it is because of the climate, the soil, and everything. And even if you try to bring that type of grass and soil to another place, it's going to react differently because of the climate and the surroundings. So I think that's like the tricky thing with tennis, which is also the fascinating thing, is that you're always playing different people, different conditions, different place, different altitude, which makes the ball fly.
Yeah.
Then the balls are different as well. So
Yeah.
everything is like constantly changing. It's about adapting to that kind of thing and to play your best game, you know. So it's a lot about being resilient,
Yeah.
like, okay, mentally resilient, but also like being able
Yeah.
to adapt
Yeah.
quickly.
100%. And like I speak, I've been lucky to be coached by a guy called Martin Lee for quite a long time, and he got to like top 100. And I remember one of the things that he said to me that has always stuck to me is that he said he only felt good on the court probably about 30% of the time throughout his whole career, and it's just about how well you can adapt with how you're feeling and trying to get the best out of how you feel on each day. And no day you're going to feel really, really good. And so, like, I have players that I coach where they come to me and they be like, I don't feel good today. What can I do to feel better? And it's just like, there's not much that you can do. You're not going to feel good every single day, but figure out what you are doing well on that day and really like go with that and try and make that your strength for that day. And it's who's good at adapting, as you said, who's good with making changes. And one day your backhand might feel great, and then the next round your backhand might feel terrible. And it's not going to be the same for the whole tournament, but it's about adapting and doing what you can for that match to get the best out of yourself.
And that's the interesting part. Like that's why we like sports, I guess, because it's like it's about, you know, challenging yourself, you know, and finding like how can
Yeah,
I optimize my performance based on my on the conditions that I already preset. Like you know, you can't determine everything. Like you just go to a
yeah,
hotel and you're like, oh, okay, this bed was shit, and then you're still don't sleep. So then you have to find a way to play despite not feeling 100%, or you have like a lingering injury, you know, and stuff like that. You know, that's
yeah,
also debilitating. How are you with
yeah,
like injuries? You had heart problems a while back, but they're now okay. How was that
yeah.
period for you as a tennis player?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously that was quite a tough time. It was after the pandemic, but I ended up getting COVID afterwards, and then when I was coming back to training, then I was built up, and I just had some experiences where I was like fainting when I was doing some intense exercise,
Jeez.
and so I went to the doctors to find out what was happening, and then they put an ECG monitor on whilst and told me to go exercise again, and then the same thing happened. I like passed out for a few seconds, and then when they looked back at the data, basically my heart was pausing for periods of time, so there was like small like flat lines for up to like 3 to 5 seconds. And so there was no real like conclusion as to what the cause was. They presumed it was from having COVID, and it was just an effect of COVID because they saw a lot of young sporty men specifically have issues with that. And then it just said over time it should get better. But the real concern was that they thought I might have myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart, which would be a big problem because that takes a long time to recover if you do recover, which would mean that I would have potentially not been able to play tennis again or not for a very long time. And so that was actually the time where I decided to start the YouTube channel because before that I had like clips of me playing here and there, but not much. And then when I was looking at like Tennis Brothers and Jules Marie and all those guys and document their journey, I thought, wow, imagine if this was like the last time that I would have been able to play tennis and I have nothing to look back on my journey. So that's where I really committed and decided to start the YouTube channel so that I could document my journey, and then hopefully in like 10, 20 years time I can look back and be like, yeah, that's my journey. I can look back at this, I can maybe show my kids one day, and then it's actually documented of my tennis and how I performed over the years. So that was the real driver for my YouTube channel.
And you're feeling better today. You don't faint when you're playing tennis, I guess, or
No, I haven't had any problems for that in about a year now, so it seems to have
okay,
recovered. Yeah,
good to
so
hear.
I
Yeah, yeah, because
don't have any problems.
that was a must have been mentally quite challenging, right? To like see, can I play tennis? Can I be a pro? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, like, I think it was quite eye opening for me because it just really shifted the focus of like, is my health actually okay? Is it anything more serious than just myocarditis or anything like that? Am I actually going to be okay regardless of tennis? And then for like a few weeks, like, I didn't even care about tennis. Just wanted to like make sure I was okay, right? And then you realize like the most important things are like your family and like other stuff, and it really put in perspective of who you are as a person. And then like I've always learned from when I was younger that I didn't really get it right when I was younger, but when you picture yourself, like you picture yourself as like a pie chart, and like there's different elements of you, like we spoke with like music before, or like you said with your business, whatever. And I think a lot of kids growing up, the whole pie chart is tennis, and like who are you as a person? I'm a tennis player. Whereas like that's not true. You're whoever you are. Like I'm Cameron. This part of me is tennis. This part of me I do a bit of music. This part I hang out with my family. And I think if you have that whole well-rounded view, then it takes a lot of pressure off the tennis. And of course, tennis is still going to be a big focus in your life, and it's going to be really important to you. But then it takes away a lot of anxiety and stress, and it'll actually help you perform better on the court.
I think that's a great point and very smartly put for a young guy, right? Like it's you can't, and that's why I asked about the hobbies as well. And for me, it's always been
Yeah.
like I was competing in chess, or you do
Yeah.
business, or you do something tennis. You need to
Yeah.
have a holistic view of your life, right? You get it because a lot of people,
100%.
the tennis is so demanding, and you grow up maybe
Hmm.
with tennis playing parents, and you're in a tennis
Yeah.
bubble, so everything around your life is tennis. Maybe
Yeah.
your brothers, like if you look at, for example, several families that are top players on the tour, ATP,
Yeah.
WTA, their whole family is tennis. It's like the mother play tennis, the father play tennis, the brothers play tennis or sisters, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, tennis family. So it's they all talk about tennis mainly, and it's always
Hmm.
revolved around tennis. And then if tennis not doing, if you're not doing well, if you're playing
Yeah.
badly or you're having bad results, who are
Hmm.
you? Like, who do you identify as, right? And you like a
Exactly.
failure feeling, right? So it's a
Yeah,
not
exactly.
not a
You feel
good.
like a failure, and you kind of like have a sort of like an identity crisis, right? And you're like, if I'm not a tennis player, then who am I? That's who I have, and then you start feeling like sad or whatever. So I think a lot of juniors who do have that mindset of that tennis is their whole pie chart often put their worth as a person on how good they are at tennis. And so they come up and they play against someone who's like ranked, I don't know, top 10 in the country, and you're ranked like 300. You think, oh, they're amazing. What an amazing person they are. And then you feel like less of a person compared to them. And I think that's really important to teach juniors that your worth as a person isn't equal to how good you are at tennis.
100%. I think that's great advice, and I think it's good to have to balance your life in a way that you also have other hobbies. So you
Yeah.
mentioned music. I think that's a great. I know there's some other tennis players, especially that like music, but you might be doing another sport. It might be
Yeah.
you're reading or writing or whatever, some creative
Yeah.
endeavor, like maybe. And so then it's not all about your results because tennis is a result
Yeah.
sport. So
Yeah.
music, on the other hand, like you can make a song and then it's about that, or you can write this, or it's a bit different. But when you play tennis, you're looking at your matches, and it's very easy
Hmm.
to identify with your results, and suddenly you're like
Yeah.
questioning yourself, right?
Exactly. And that's why I think it's difficult for people to transition to the pro circuit having finished education. Because when you're in school, even if you're homeschooled, you have something to focus on, whether it be your exams or like learning new things. And if you completely cut that out and then transition to just tennis, I think that's when a lot of people struggle mentally. So I think replacing school when you finish school with another hobby or something is super important to take your mind off tennis.
Yeah, and it's gonna make everything more balanced. Like I always enjoy, like when I was playing chess competitively, traveling like around playing junior world championships and stuff like this. I always enjoyed having my writing or my music as a secondary hobby, so I
Yeah.
wasn't like completely destroyed by a loss. Because when you're a younger, like the whole world revolves. You don't have family, like beside wife or
Yeah.
kids, whatever. Your whole life
Yeah.
revolves around like your sport. So you're like
Yeah.
destroyed when you're losing, and it makes it even tougher
Exactly.
if you don't have a outlet.
And I think it's a good tip, especially in the modern age of social media, is to have a separate Instagram account where you don't follow anything to do with tennis. So I have like my tennis account and then I have the personal account, and I just follow things that I enjoy, whether that be music, Formula One, my family and stuff. So if I just want to take my mind away from tennis for a second, I'll just go onto that account and I scroll Instagram on that account so that I don't get any of the tennis content. And I think that's something that I haven't heard many people say, and I think it'll be really useful for all the kids who are on social media at the moment.
Yeah, social media is a beast in many ways, right? Like it can be great in getting inspiration and stuff, but you can also feel that you're like a lot of FOMO, like you're missing out. People have living great lives to being out, and everything is obviously a highlight reel. So tennis is like,
Yeah.
or in social media, especially Instagram, I would say, like a highlight reel of people's lives. And it's
Yeah.
very easy when you sit there and scroll. You're like, oh, well, I'm here editing a YouTube video for like the fourth hour, So you
Yeah.
feel like you're not contributing or doing anything. So I think like social media management of trying to limit it or trying to
Mhm.
focus on looking at kittens or whatever makes you less anxious
Yeah.
about stuff is pretty good generally, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I agree.
How's your social media use? Your heavy screen time or not?
Um, yeah, I mean, since I started YouTube, I've been gone up a lot, especially when I started the channel. I started to getting some more than like 1,000 views on my videos, and I started to getting some more interactions. I used to have my notifications on, so every time I got a comment or something, it'll come through as an email and it'd like ping up on my phone and everything. And like when you first start the channel, like it's quite exciting, right? Because you think, oh, someone's actually
Mm.
watched my video, and you go look at it. But then when I had my first video that got like decent views, like I think it was my first baseline to pro episode, and it was like got I think it's around like 30,000 views now, and like a load of comments and stuff. My phone was going off all the time, and I was interested to see what people said. And that was when I first got a little bit of hate as well. So then every time I'd get a notification, I'd be like, "Oh, is this a nice comment? Is someone going to be a bit mean here?" And then like it give me a bit of anxiety every time I looked at it. So since that point, I've turned notifications off, and I only look at the comments like after a few days after posting the video, and I go through it when I want to. So my life's not dictated by like a notification. I can actually be in control, be the one in control, and have a look when I want to have a look at it.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think I had a similar thing. Like I released some novels 10 years ago, and the
Yeah,
one was doing really well, and I had a pretty like my Twitter account was somewhere I was posting a lot about the books and stuff, and that was also
right.
so. And I had all the notifications on like sales of the books, and so every
Yeah,
morning you start like scrolling, like how is it doing, and that's also easy to do with YouTube because YouTube is can be an internal like external stress in a sense because it's like you have all
yeah,
the analytics like, oh, nobody watched my video this last one,
hmm
or I got some nasty comments, or why did I add this clip, maybe someone didn't like it and stuff like. So it's so
yeah.
easy to get into that, just just adding an extra layer of stress that it doesn't have to be there. And it's tough
No,
sometimes to
exactly.
just post and ghost, and be like, okay, I posted this, and then I don't look
Yeah,
because people want the interaction as well. So it's like then your
yeah,
metrics will go down and you stress about that.
exactly. So yeah, it's important to actually reply to comments and stuff, especially as you're trying to create like a little community and stuff. And it's like you put effort into making a video, someone's commented on it, and like they didn't have to comment, so it's nice to like interact with them and like see what they have to say and start a little conversation. But if you like plan out like half an hour of my day here is going to be having a look at the comments and doing a few replies rather than just waiting for that message to come to you. But I also think it's important to, if you're going to start a YouTube channel, just do it for yourself. Like the only reason that you should start a YouTube channel is to do it for yourself because you want to make the videos and you enjoy making the videos, and that's the primary thing. So if I post a video and it gets like 300 views, I don't really care that much because in 10 years time I'm going to look back and be like, yeah, I'm happy I made that video and I like that video that I made, rather than trying to do it for loads of clicks and views every single time. And it's tough because it's a balance, because like I've got to fund my tennis, so YouTube's going to help that a little bit. So you do need to do like, I guess, like good thumbnails and put time into making a title that is going to get some views, but then having the primary focus of this is for me, not for them, then I think you're going to be on the right frame of mind for having a good YouTube channel.
I think that's a great frame of like that's a great way of thinking about it, because you learn every time you edit a video or publish a video, you learn
Yeah,
something. Like you learn something from the
yeah,
process. It's like tennis. Even if you lose a match, if you try to learn from the match, at least it's something. It has value. Like if you just
yeah,
ignore, maybe that has no value. But you have to always think about everything as okay. Like what did I learn from this? And then if you can add value to your life, I think it's great
yeah,
advice actually.
yeah, 100%.
All right, Cameron. Thanks a lot for joining. Took an
No
hour of
worries.
your
Thank you so much.
hard-earned
Great
time.
conversation.
Yeah, it's fun. It was fun. And anytime you want to pop up again, we'll do it. We'll talk more when you start playing more tournaments. I will follow your journey, and
Thank
people
you.
can watch. The name of the channel is the same as your name, right?
Yeah, it's Cameron Price, and the handle's at CamPrice99 on all social media.
Very good. So make sure you follow him, guys. It's going to be interesting to follow his journey, and best of luck. And we keep in touch, okay?
Yeah, thank you so much for sure. I'd love to come back on in the future.